Hey everybody, and welcome to another Star Citizen video. My name is Scary Spikes, and today, at the tail end of the Invictus event, we're going to be talking about the much anticipated RSI Scorpius. Before we get started though, a huge thanks to my channel members and patrons, and to all of you for being so patient while I was away dealing with real life stuff. Sometimes, unfortunately, we can't avoid those things, and I just wanted to let you know how much I appreciate all your support and words of kindness during this absence. I'm looking forward to pumping out some more videos and awesome content for all of you. Let's go ahead and get started. Alright everybody, so I'm sure you know how it works by now if you've seen some of my videos before. If you haven't, welcome, but if you have, welcome back. It's nice to see all of you after the long absence there. And I gotta be honest with you guys, I was not really a big fan of the Scorpius initially. When I saw all the concept art and stuff like that, I thought it was pretty cool, and it definitely gave me some X-Wing vibes, as it sure did to many of you. However, seeing this thing in engine and seeing all the little bits and bobbles that come out of it, it's honestly something that's going to be changing my mind, and already has begun to change my mind. I'm honestly starting to fall in love with this thing. It's a pretty cool ship, and even though I really like larger ships like the Perseus, the Polaris, the Idris, and the Javelin, I really quite want to see how this thing will fit inside of an Idris, for example, in the flight deck inside of the Idris there. So very interested to see how that works out, but we're not here for the Idris, we're here for the Scorpius. So let's go ahead and talk about that. Of course, as you guys know, we're going to be taking a look at the exterior features, which there are plenty on this vessel, followed by an interior tour, which is going to be nice and quick, and then we're going to be taking a look at Urkel.games to see how we can make this thing better. So the very first thing that's going to stick out at you here is that this thing is packed to the brim. We're going to go ahead and get started at the very front of the ship here, work our way to the port side, then to the aft, or the rear, as it's otherwise known, giggity, and finish up on the starboard side of the ship before heading inside. So the very front of this thing, the very first thing that's kind of notable about it is that we have this on-rails canopy, which opens up towards the front. Again, very aggressive kind of styling, which is something I think RSI was really going for with this thing, as it is considered to be a heavy fighter, though I gotta be honest with you guys, it feels more like a medium fighter. But we'll get into the handling characteristics in a bit. So we've got these rails, and these will hide in the chassis of the ship once everything is retracted, which is quite nice. Then we can move on, and we've got some thrusters on both the port and the starboard side. These will make their way around the vessel as they are maneuvering thrusters, and we do have some main thrusters on the back as well for our main thrust. And as you can see here, we have quite a lot of stuff that's just, well, stuffed into this ship, which is very, very surprising. And to be honest, I didn't even really know about a lot of this stuff until I started pushing buttons and little doodads started to come out. So before we talk about those, let's go ahead and talk about the missiles, because this thing does have a very nice complement of missiles. We have a 2x4 selection down here, and I believe that's actually what we were stuck with before RSI decided to double up and give us 16. So we have another pair of these quadruple missile launchers up top, which we'll have a look at in a bit, and that's going to give us 16 size 2 missiles, which is very competent for something like this. So beyond that, we do see that we have some little components and stuff that come out, and many of these are going to be your system components, and you can access these panels simply by hitting the access buttons here using your inner thought system. So you're going to be holding your F key and pressing left mouse button, and these are, just like I said, a number of different parts of the ship, the majority of them being components, although you do have stuff like this, which is your weapon rack. So you actually do have a built-in weapon rack, and I'm thinking to myself, how in the world do they even fit this in there? But for a heavy fighter to have a weapon rack, just in case you're heading out and doing some ground missions in between, you know, slaughtering dudes in space, then this is great. It's a really great option to have. So it does look like we have, well, it looks like at least one. I haven't tried, as you guys can see. We're currently in Orison, and actually getting some decent frame rates. I was going to film elsewhere, but the Invictus launch week was here, as you guys know, and I was also here because I was checking out Invictus over the course of the week. So thankfully we're getting some decent performance, although it could be a little bit better. Now, working our way around the side of the ship here, we do have a couple of panels flanking the front landing gear, which we have a trifecta of there, as you can see, one in the front, two in the back. And this is going to give you access to your internal storage. You're going to be able to move things from your storage into your ship storage and back. And you'll be able to see there you have quite a decent amount of storage in here. So that's actually, again, a very nice thing to see, and something that is predominantly meant to be a combat ship. Very nice, RSI. I'm actually quite impressed. Now, the landing gear themselves are, looks like 4 piston each. They are nice and flat on the bottom, and they do stow away very nicely in their own little cubbies here. You can see we've got little doors and stuff like that, and much in the same way as the doors on the component housings, these do lie flat once everything is nicely retracted, so that is good to know. We do have some more components here, so we've got our coolers and shield generator. One thing I should mention about the Scorpius is that we have a pair of everything in size 1, but we have a very generous size 2 shield on this thing, which definitely makes it much more formidable and, well, increases the defenses of the ship significantly. So, again, a few more buttons here. Whoops, we've already pressed that one. Let's go ahead and press that one again. It's easy to get confused because there's just so much of it. And, like, we've got another one here that we didn't even see. So there's another one there. And how do we close this one? Oh, this one is on this side. So there you go. And we've got a couple of more here. We've got some more panels to close up here. So we'll go ahead and close that one up. And this one up as well. And what's nice is that these access buttons here make it very, very simple. But as you guys can see, everything just very, very neatly tucks in. And if you didn't press these buttons, like happy-go-lucky style like I have, you probably wouldn't know that there's any space in there for any of this stuff, which is just, again, incredibly impressive that RSI was able to squeeze all that in there. Giggity. All right, so let's talk about the armament of this ship, because that's probably what's going to interest a lot of you guys. And I gotta say, very, very impressive. We've already been over the missiles. We've got 16 size 2 missiles. Now, one thing that I'm not sure about is whether you can actually change this up like you can on the Ares starfighters, where you can change the missile configuration in terms of different sizes and amounts. That is something I haven't actually played with just yet, but you guys can let me know in the comment section if you've been successful in doing that. That being said, we have a swept wing design here. We can see that the wings are swept back on both the port and the starboard side of the ship. If we look around the aft end, giggity, you can see that we have our weapons mounted on both sides. We have 2 CF337 Panthers on either side for a total of 4 CF227 Badger laser repeaters. You can put Panthers on there. These are gimbaled though, and if you haven't seen my video on the difference between gimbaled and fixed weapons, definitely go ahead and check that out. But yeah, these are definitely going to be gimbaled, which is going to be a lot more new player friendly, but they are going to be doing less damage, less alpha damage as well. Something to keep in mind. You can put your fixed size 3 weapons on here, and that will of course be blending in very nicely with the size 3 weapons on the turret, which you can see just up here. If we come around the port side of the ship towards the front, a little bit up to the front, there we go. Okay, so you can see that we do have a turret on the back. Now, that what's really cool is this thing's got some really serious weapons on it. It's 4 size 3 CF337 laser repeaters on that thing. And what's really cool about this whole setup is this turret can be used not only for offensive, but also for defensive use. Now, you can see that we have this whole setup here in the back. This is, in fact, a rail system for that turret to maneuver all the way around from the top to the back to the bottom, being able to cover a majority of the ship's sides in order to be able to effectively handle any kind of threat from almost any direction. So that is an absolute ingenious design by RSI, something that I'm actually really, really happy to see. There's a lot of innovation in this ship, and it's bringing a whole new type of gameplay style. For those of you guys who own, for example, a Hurricane, you'll notice that, you know, it is very similar to a Hurricane in the sense that you do have, you know, a 2-up ship, you have a pilot, you have a gunner, but honestly, there's something to be said about having 16 size 2 missiles. I know that 4 gimbaled weapons by default in size 2 configuration can't really hold a candle to 2 size 4 fixed weapons, but again, you do have the option to go fixed here, except you have 4 size 3s instead of 2 size 4s, which really, I think, puts this thing above and beyond the capabilities of the ship that it's competing with the most, which is, of course, the Hurricane. Okay, so we're inside of the ship now, but I wanted to show you guys a few more of the external features before we hop right into the cockpit tour. And that's going to be just how to change up the configuration of the wings, which is, you know, quite easy. It's automatic if you lift off and bring in your landing gear, and you'll notice that that definitely expands the wings into the X-Wing configuration, so to speak. And then you've got the classic silhouette of the Scorpius as it was meant to be seen. Now, of course, you can change that while your landing gear is retracted by holding Alt and pressing K. And if you're looking to do a little bit more maneuvering or getting into tighter spaces, giggity, then you're going to notice that you have a much slimmer profile doing this as opposed to having your wings out. All right, well, other than the moderate seizure that the ship has when you start it up, it does look pretty nice. We have a few different things to look at here inside the cockpit as we continue our interior tour. Of course, we're going to have a look at the pilot's view, and then we're also going to be having a look at the co-pilot or the gunner's view in the back. So let's go ahead and start from left to right, and I'll just give you my ideas, my thoughts of what I think of the cockpit. Generally speaking, I think it's quite nicely designed, but there are a few things that I don't like, and I'll elaborate on those when we get to them. So, holding F for inner thought, we can see that we do have an option here with the inner thought menu, as with most ships that we do, to exit the ship, ones that have a canopy at least. So that's really nice. We do have some buttons over here, which is effectively on the port side of the ship. But honestly, I would recommend you guys to use your keyboards or your HOTAS or whatever, instruments or controls that you happen to have instead of using these, because they're kind of clunky. They are a bit more immersive, but I have a feeling that we're going to be seeing these things fleshed out a little bit more in the future. And RSI has already stated that they are looking to do some more work with the Scorpius. I don't know if that means specifically with the cockpit, but I'm sure we're going to be seeing some more stuff from the Scorpius and from RSI down the road. Now, we also have a throttle system over here. So we have a traditional throttle on the left-hand side with a center-mounted stick. And for those of you who have a HOTAS, hands-on throttle and stick, you'll be a little bit more immersed, hopefully, knowing that your ship has the same controls as you do. And of course, we have the typical UI here on the very front, which is one that we've had for a few major patches now, which is really quite nice. You got a 2D radar in the middle, and then we have a pair of MFDs as well. And the MFDs, you can definitely change them. You can go ahead and head into the menu and choose whatever it is that you would like to see. And of course, you'll be able to see that. We do also have some function buttons at the bottom. Not all of them appear to be functional, but again, you probably want to use shortcuts for these as opposed to actually pressing them. It's nice that they're included. In fact, it doesn't seem like we have really anything here on the bottom of the right MFD. Seems like we've only got power and engine controls under the left MFD. And one of the things that I don't like about this, well, okay, let me start with what I like. I do like that the MFDs are a very futuristic design. I do like that they're presumably on some kind of like clear glass that's got a little bit of a tint to it, which is quite nice. So the aesthetics overall are pretty good. I do like the buttons at the bottom as well, though I feel like they're a little bit redundant, but my biggest gripe, honestly, is just the misuse of real estate on the actual MFD itself. It seems like we could have either had, the screen go into the right-hand section of the MFD, like right over here, and then this little thing over here on the side where we've got limited space, we could have put these buttons and we could have slimmed this down quite a little bit. I think that would actually look a lot nicer, and if we had digital buttons, I think we could get away with taking away this ugly text that we have here, which again, that's just part of the UI that belongs to many, many different ships, so I know that's not something I can ask for right now, but at least to better utilize the space on the MFD, that's just my only gripe. Other than that, I do like the way they look. They have a nice edgy styling, as does the rest of the ship, so that definitely fits in. But other than that, we don't really see anything else that's different. On the right-hand side, we do have a lot of the same similar style buttons, obviously with different functions as we do on the port side of the ship. And then other than that, nothing really else to see. So I'm going to go ahead and exit the ship. We're going to have a look at the inside of the rear seat for the gunner, and then we'll move on to Urkel.games, so stay tuned. Okay, so looks like we've got a nice bit of space back here. We have a HOSAS system back here as compared to the HOTAS system up front. We do have what looks like a single MFD mounted on the back of the pilot's seat. And we actually have a really good view all around the cockpit here. Obviously not as good as the pilot's got it, but this is kind of reminiscent of being inside of a Buccaneer. Not much at the top, but we do have some windows off to the side. And of course, that's not going to matter too much because we do have the remote turret, and we can go ahead and enter that right now to show you what that looks like. So there you go. So that is the remote turret, and obviously we're not going to be able to fire. Well, I guess we can, but we're not going to be firing at anything because we don't want to get in trouble. But as I mentioned, we do have a pair of size 3 weapons on the back here. So this thing's got quite a bit of articulation. Looks like it goes straight down, which is really quite nice. And looks like we are facing the rear of the ship right now. What we can do is hit F to go back, and we can click on retract if we can get the button there. There we go. And then we'll enter the turret again. And as we can see now, we are on the other side. We're actually able to catch it as it was retracting. So now we're on the other position. And it looks like we're able to see everything from the top and all around the very top, left-hand, right-hand side, and front of the ship as well, which is really quite nice. So the view is definitely very good. Now, I'm not sure about how exactly this works, but I've heard some whispers in the wind that we may be able to have finite control over the exact location of the turret on the rail system. But at least that's probably going to be in the future. At least at the moment, it seems like we're only stuck with kind of two modes. We can have the turret up top, or we can have the turret out in the back. And again, if there's something that I'm missing, please do let me know in the comments below. But it seems like with the controls that we have here, we have the exit ship, of course, up front, which is that's just really weird that it's just right there. But I guess that kind of makes sense. You've got a button which will just pop the canopy open, so that's okay. We've got the deploy and the retract, and if we hit that, we can kind of see that we have the turret moving along the bottom, articulating along that rail system and moving down towards the bottom as it flips around. So it looks like, at least at the moment, we're going to have options for 2 positions on the turret, and then hopefully in the future we're going to have some more finite control, which is going to show us or give us the option or the opportunity to be able to move that turret as far or as little as we want to, which would be really quite nice. Now, there wouldn't be a lot of tactical advantage to this, in my opinion, but it would still be nice to have that control and that finite ability to move the turret exactly where you want it to be. Other than that, though, I gotta say, this is a very ingenious design, and despite the fact that we have only 2 selections at the moment, it's definitely very unique, and I really quite like it. Again, for a fighter, I'm more of a big ship kind of guy, as I usually mention, but this is really quite nice, and I do like the implementation of the rail system, because it's very unique. It's unlike anything else that we've had ever, really, in the past, and very likely it's going to be very unique against ships that are yet to be released. So that's pretty cool. Hope you enjoyed the interior tour as we took a look at the pilot's view as well as the gunner's view here. Let's go ahead now and jump into Urkel.games and have a look how we can make this thing a little bit better. I'll see you there. All right, everybody, so let's go ahead and talk about the outfitting and the upgrading of the Scorpius. Now, like I said, out of the factory, it's already pretty impressive, but we're going to make a few changes to make it even better than that. Now, if you're a new player and you've just joined us during Invictus, or maybe a little bit earlier, or you're watching this after Invictus and you're just joining in and you're looking at the Scorpius, it's definitely a great ship to go with. I definitely wouldn't recommend it as just a solo vessel, because I'd say it's relatively average sans the missiles for solo play. But if you do have a friend that's playing with you, definitely really nice to be able to do a 2-up into this ship and cause a whole lot of damage. So if you're a relatively new player, what I would recommend for you is to leave these gimbals in place. And if you haven't seen the video that I have explaining the differences between gimbals and fixed weapons and stuff like that, I'll do my best to link that in a card, although it's been quite a while. I'm not sure if I even remember which one it was, but in any case, you do have some options here. So you have the option to go with the gimbals. So these are size 3 mounts that you have for your main pilot controlled weapons on here. Okay, whenever you have any kind of mount, you have options. So when you have, or generally speaking, you have options. When you have a size 3 mount, for example, as we have here, you have the option for a size 3 gimbal, okay, which is basically like an aim assist, kind of like a gimbal for your camera, something like that. It just smooths everything out and helps you find your target. And if you don't want that, then you can have a weapon of the same size as the mount. So the size 3 mount can accommodate a size 3 fixed weapon or a size 3 gimbal. Now, the problem with using gimbals, even though it does make things a little bit easier for brand new players, is that it reduces your damage by means of restricting which weapons you can actually mount to the gimbals. And what I mean by that is every gimbal, whatever size it is, the only weapons you'll be able to mount to it are the size that are 1 lower than the size of the gimbal. So in this case, we have a size 3 gimbal, okay? And we have size 2 weapons. So we have size 2 CF227 Badger laser repeaters. And you see we have that repeated 4 times, okay? So what that's going to do is it's going to give you the benefit of having a little bit better aim and being able to more consistently hit your target, which is still important, okay? But it's going to reduce your overall DPS because you're not going to be using the weapons that the mount is made for, which is a size 3. Now, the other side of that argument is that you could use fixed size 3 weapons on here without a gimbal, and you have a lot more damage potential, but then you have to use your ship, basically, to aim the reticle that's eventually going to be hitting, or it's going to be helping you to hit your target with those fixed weapons, and you're going to have to lead the target manually with that. So what you have to ask yourself is, do I have the dexterity and the skill to lead a target with fixed weapons, and will I hit them enough to compensate the loss of DPS that I'll have by being able to constantly hit them, because with the gimbaled weapons, because they're gimbaled, much easier to hit the target. And, you know, will I be able to compensate for that loss of DPS by having to use a gimbal and one size lower weapon? So that's a question you're going to have to ask yourself. And it's going to be a choice that you're going to have to probably play with, especially as a newer player, to see what you like. In my recommendation, I would say just go with the size 3 weapons, the fixed weapons, right from the get-go if you can help yourself, if you can do it, because it will make you a better pilot. But generally speaking, I still stand by my previous recommendation that if you are a brand new player, you're just getting to the grips of the controls and everything like that in the game, it can be very overwhelming. There's very few, if any, tutorials or anything like that other than some tips in the game. And so this is why videos like mine exist, to try to help you along. And in that case, if you're so new and you want to kind of take it easy and, you know, just get there very slowly, but get there, then definitely you can start with the gimbals and then work your way up to fixed weapons once you are ready to do that. So with that little preamble out of the way, let's go ahead and change these over. So as you can see here, I'm not actually looking to change the weapon on the gimbal. I'm looking to just change the gimbal out itself, okay? Because if we try to change the weapon, we're still working with the weapon on a gimbal. So the only weapons we're going to see here are going to be the size 2 weapons, as opposed to the size 3 weapons that we want for maximum DPS. Now, what's nice is the CF337 and any of the other CF, even the 227 and so on, the laser repeaters, the naming convention is very, very easy. It's not like this on all weapons, but you have your CF117, you have your CF227, so you have your Bulldogs, your Badgers, your Panthers, CF447, your Rhinos, 557 Galdarines, and so on, okay? So we're going to be using the CF337 Panther laser repeater. Now again, I got to reiterate, this is a fixed weapon, so you're going to be using the thrusters of your ship to maneuver your ship in order to be able to aim your reticle at your enemy and predict their movement in order to be able to hit them, because now you don't have that aim assist anymore. But you do have the benefit of having more damage because you're using one size higher weapon. So we're going to go ahead and choose the 337s for all of these. There we go. And if you've been paying attention on the right-hand side, you'll notice that our DPS has definitely gone up quite a bit. We were up quite a bit lower with the size 2 weapons, and now with the size 3s, we're doing quite a lot more DPS. Okay? And I mean, that's just for pilot weapons. That's not including, of course, any missiles or any of the turreted weapons as well. But we see we have a remote turret here. We can change this out as well. There's no need, though, because this is already a turret that can accommodate size 3 weapons as big as we have. And you can see that we have size 3 weapons there. So for the turret, we're going to be leaving those in place. If you really, really want to, you could put a ballistic Gatling gun in there. I honestly wouldn't really do that. I don't like Gatlings just because they're so limited on ammo. And until we have such features in the game that allow us to rearm, it's really not going to make any sense, at least in my opinion, to use Gatling weapons at anything smaller than a size 4. Okay, so we're going to move on to our missile racks, and I think this actually answers the question that we had from previously in the video when we were looking at, you know, hey, are we going to be able to change the sizes of these missiles and stuff like that? So it doesn't look like we can, because the missiles, as with the majority of RSI ships, are proprietary, or at least the missile bays are. But the good news is we are going to be able to change the type of missile that we have. So we have Tempest here. The Ignites are honestly really, really good. I do like the Ignites quite a bit. Those are the IR. The Tempests are okay, but honestly, my favorite are going to be the Dominators. So we're going to go ahead and choose the Dominators. These are electromagnetic missiles, and at least in this current patch, they tend to work better than the majority of others. The IR missiles will still work pretty decently. They are a little bit more susceptible, in my experience, to countermeasures. But the Dominators are quite good, and no issues locking or anything like that. The Strike Forces used to be my favorite, but the problem with the Strike Force is they are a cross-section, and for some reason or another, I don't know if this is intended or a bug, but if you've got your enemy in your crosshairs and you're trying to lock them up with a cross-section missile, whether it be a Strike Force or an Arrestor or so on, if they are close to any other larger body, any other ship, any other, rock, or any large body, any kind of mass that's close to them, you are not going to be able to effectively lock them very well or at all. And so for that reason, I recommend going with EM missiles in this particular patch. The IR can be good too. Again, in my experience, they're a bit more susceptible to the countermeasures that can be employed. The AI, you're not really going to have too much. They're pretty predictable. But in any case, go with the Dominators. That's just my opinion, but you can go ahead and choose whatever works for you. All right, so we're going to go ahead and move on to shields now, and as you can see, that is pretty much going to be the exception with respect to, with the exception of the quantum drive, of having singular modules on the ship with respect to power plants and the cooling and stuff. We do have a pair of each for that, but for the shields, we're going to have one single size 2, and in my opinion, the FR76 is one of the best. You could go with a parapet as well, and of course, you can use this tool, this Urkel.Games tool, to add any of these to your cart. And once they're up in your cart, in the top right-hand corner of your screen, you see I have a few things added to my cart here. You can actually find the location and the price. So whatever is closer to you and or whatever you can afford is going to be what I would recommend with respect to either of these two. So whether it's the FR76 or the parapet, I would say choose one of those two. The others are not bad as well, but again, those two have been very faithful to me, so that's what I'm going to go with, and that's just what works for me. So we're going to move on to the power plants now, and we have the Regulus. Regulus is okay. It's nothing to write home about. As you guys know, if you've watched my previous videos, I really like my JS series, so I'm going to go ahead with the JS300 here. Now, these are going to be your size 1 components, okay? You're going to have size 1 for power plants, you're going to have size 1 for coolers, you're going to have size 1 for your quantum drive, but you will have a very generous size 2 for your shield generator, which is going to be quite nice. Offer you some good protection there. But in any case, for the power plants, a JS series, the Quadracell, I don't know if they make them in a size 1. In fact, we can probably just see. Yeah, they do have a Quadracell for the size 1, so the Quadracell is good too. But the JS is certainly my favorite. It's what I use pretty much for everything, 3, 4, and 500 respectively. So there you go. Okay, moving on to the coolers here. Now the polars, again, not too bad. I personally really like the glaciers. These are going to run you a little bit more money, but they are worth it. At least for me. I mean, to be honest, guys, we're not in the state of the game where the coolers are so well refined that they have that they play a major role. I mean, they're still required, and you're not going to be able to operate your ship without good coolers. But this is one of the areas that you can skimp on if you really absolutely need to. I wouldn't say get the bottom of the barrel, but certainly you can get a grade A would be sufficient, of course, but a grade B would be okay as well, and in some cases a grade C would be fine too. All right, and finally, we're going to move on to the quantum drive. And for the quantum drive, the EOS is actually not too bad for just regular day-to-day booting around, though. I would recommend the Atlas. The Atlas is pretty good, especially if you're going longer distances or if you want to save on fuel. The Atlas is really nice because it has a longer range since it's quite a bit more efficient. But if you are looking for speed, okay, in short durations, then you're looking for the stealth one. And I don't know if that's the Spicule or the Spectre. It is the Spectre, okay? So the Spectre is really good. Ideally, you can be doing bounty hunting and stuff with this. And the Spectre, the reason why it's really good is because its stage 1 acceleration is really high, and it's quite a bit higher than the majority of the other drives at this size. And so what that means is, despite having maybe not as good efficiency or not as good top speed as some of the other drives that might be out there that are good in those respective areas, what you're going to be looking at is a drive that can get you from point A to point B very fast because it gets to the top speed much faster, okay? So if you are staying within a small area of Stanton, if you're, for example, just sticking to Crusader, just sticking to Hurston, just sticking to area ArcCorp, or just sticking to Microtech, just sticking to those little subsystems there, and you're doing bounty hunting, you're doing ground missions, what have you, right? Having something like this is a lot more beneficial to you. But if you're doing cross-system travel, then you definitely want the Atlas. It's a lot better. So for my purposes, I'm going to go with the Spectre. This does also have the benefit of reducing your signature a little bit as well, which is nice. Makes you a little bit harder to detect at range, which, you're already going to have that benefit because you're a smaller ship. But it's definitely going to help a little bit there, make you a little bit more stealthy. Okay, so that's pretty much going to do it. I mean, we do also have a few different paints here as well, but of course, those are going to be up to you based on how you want your ship to look. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you guys coming on back, and for all of your support and love and everything while I was away. Very, very much appreciate that. For anyone who's wondering, my buddy was in the hospital, is doing much better, and my legal stuff is all wrapped up. So I'm ready to start a new chapter in my life, and I just can't thank you guys enough for all of your support. But speaking of that, if you would like to help support me and what I do, if you find my videos helpful, entertaining, enjoyable, funny, or, you know, anything positive, then I would really appreciate you smacking that like button, becoming a subscriber if you aren't already, so that you can get all of my content in your feed whenever it happens. Of course, I post videos weekly. You can also share my videos with all of your friends and all of your communities as well, for anyone else who might be struggling or looking to learn about a particular subject. And then, of course, you guys can join us on our wonderful Discord. We have a great Discord server, wonderful community there that you can join us there, and the link for that will be down in the description below, as will the link for my stream as well. For those of you guys who don't know, I stream Wednesdays and Fridays at 8 p.m. Eastern on Twitch. So come on by and join me for that. I always have a good time there. I'm looking at doing maybe some subscriber streams as well for editing and stuff like that. So let me know if that's something that you'd like to see. But other than that, if you want to go a little bit further and support me in a more direct way, there is also another option for you guys. So you can become a channel member using the blue join button down below, and that will give you some nice perks. And if you're looking for more perks, there's some really unique and exclusive stuff on my Patreon. So go ahead and check that out. We do have a goal for 10 patrons to do a studio tour video. So we're on the way to that goal. But if you'd like to support me more directly, that is something that you can do. And very, very much appreciate that. Again, the link for that will be down in the description below. So again, thanks so much for watching, everybody. Hope you enjoyed the video. It's nice to be back and nice to see all of you again. And hope to see you real soon. And of course, in the next video.